Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into my first YouTube video. It's been a long-awaited video. I've been telling people for a long time I was going to create a tutorial on building cables for your mice, specifically with these like sort of in-desk ports and terminated with Aviation. So a lot of people have various questions about it. A lot of people wanted to know where I got certain things. So I'm hoping that in the course of this video, I'll be able to explain all that to you, answer all your questions. But if I can't, the comment section is always down below, whether you're on Reddit, Instagram, or YouTube, because I think I'm going to try to upload it to all three, or at the very least, I'll just link it to Reddit. And yeah, so if you have any questions about what went on in this video, please ask away. I will try to get to all of them. But if it's a duplicate question, I likely won't answer you. What I'm probably going to then do is just sort of take your question and move it into maybe like a frequently asked section of the original post. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was shot a while back, so it's gonna look a little different, and it was also done on stream, so I'm sorry if the formatting's a little strange, but I did my best. So yeah, enjoy. So this is the mouse that we're gonna be modding. As you can see, it's already painted. I've done a lot of stuff to this mouse in the past, but we're going to be installing this connector and replacing this one so that I can do a similar mod to, or so that I have a similar setup with this mouse as I do with my other one. So, should be exciting. Because like I said, I have gotten quite a few questions about this on Reddit before, and I also get asked about it every once in a while on Instagram, so that's what we're gonna be doing, but should be pretty fun. So the first step to doing this is disassembling your mouse. For the sake of this, we actually don't need to take out anything with a screwdriver. The only thing we need to take out is this connector right here, which is attached to the cable. So we're gonna pop this guy out, slowly take it out, make sure you don't damage anything. Now, if you were using a stock mouse, it would look a little different. The process is completely the same though, so you shouldn't have any issues with it. So really all we need now is our cable. And then once we finish, we'll reassemble and then go from there. But right now, all we need is this cable. Now, if you have a stock mouse, what I would recommend doing is I would actually, before you do sort of any of what I just showed you, your best bet is to set up your mouse and decide where you want the connector in your desk to be. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So like this connector right here, I have obviously on the other side for my mouse as well. But you want to decide where you want to place these connectors before disassembling the mouse, because you're going to want to use your mouse for like probably a day or so. And basically just place a piece of tape on your cable wherever you want the like port in your desk to be, and that will sort of act as that like fixed point for your mouse. So that way, like, you know, you won't make any mistakes when you're actually going through and doing this. So once you've done all that, then obviously the next step is to disassemble your mouse, remove the cable, and get into the fun stuff. So once you remove the cable, on a stock mouse, you're just gonna wanna like strip the sleeving, right? So we're gonna do that right now because like I said, I'm not even gonna use this cable, so I might as well show you. We can get rid of the yellow wire because we're only going to be using white, black, red, and green. Okay. Now is a very important step. Now is where we take those measurements we got earlier and we're going to do a couple things. So once you have your tape placed in your desk and you have that cable held down, that's going to be the minimum length, right? That's going to be like the first part. So there's a couple other things you want to keep in mind. The next part you want to keep in mind is that there's wire that actually runs inside of the mouse, about 4 inches. So that length that you spec'd out with your piece of tape, you're going to want to add about 4 inches. And to be safe, I like to add 2 more for a little extra slack, and then I go from there. But since I already have one complete, this guy is going to be my benchmark. So I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm just going to measure it out. So we're going to take our ruler and measure the length from that piece of tape in your situation to the front of the mouse. So in my situation, we have 12, and it's about 14 inches long from the front of the mouse to the port on my desk. Now, like I said, I like to add about 6 extra inches on top of that because there's 4 inches in the mouse and you want a little extra slack, and if you make like a mistake or, you know, some of the wiring is going to end up inside of the connector, you want a little extra. So we're going to go with, like I said, 14 plus 6, going to be 20 inches. So we're going to take our loose wire and we are going to measure out 20 inches. Whoops. Another thing you want to make sure is that if you're measuring them all at the same time, make sure that they're all straight and make sure that they all start at the same point, or at least very close. So, okay. So there's 12 inches. And 8 more, there's 20. So this is going to be our mouse cable. Alright, so the next step is sleeving the cable. Now, fortunately, because we have a very small cable, it'll be very easy. So, I have a way I like to do this. Essentially, you just take your sleeving. We're going to use pink in this case. Let's keep this connector on, actually. Okay. I like to just measure it out by running my finger along both, and then adding about 2 inches of extra cable for something like this size, since we're less than 2 feet, so it really won't need much extra. But the reason why we add a little extra is because this cord has to expand, and when it expands, it shrinks in length. So you just have to factor that in, otherwise your paracord might be a little short. Then what I like to do is I get a lighter. We're just playing with all the fun toys today. Lighters, soldering irons, knives, apparently. I'm gonna get kicked off of Twitch for having all these things. No, I'm just kidding. So we basically just melt the end. This side is already melted, but this side is not, and we don't want it to fray. So we just melt it so that it doesn't fray. Okay. Cool. Nice. Now, we get a little piece of heat shrink. So I just have like a bin of heat shrink. And I try to find like the smallest piece that these wires will all fit into. I cut a tiny little piece off. Okay. I fit it over the end of the 4 wires. Then I'm gonna melt this. And that will kind of like secure these wires together when we actually go in now and sleeve it. So I'm gonna kind of clear the area a little bit here. You can disconnect that. I'm gonna do my best job of showing how you do this on camera. Okay. So you're gonna take your sleeve and you're gonna slide the paracord over the sleeve. I'm actually going to use the side that looks a little worse, just for the sake of aesthetics. And you're going to slide it as far as you can. And then there's a technique that we use once we get as far as we possibly can doing this. It's called inchworming. Sounds stupid, but trust me, it works. So I'm still going, I'm still going. But you know what, let's pretend like it's not working, so that I can just kind of show you. Okay, so you're gonna grab the cable. You're gonna grab with this hand, right? Like let's say you're the wire that you're trying to feed through is on your left side. You're going to squeeze with your left hand, push with the right, squeeze, let go with the left, and slide it over. And you're just going to repeat that over and over. And kind of do it close to where the wire end is. It'll be easier. And you're just going to keep doing this. And you will see it get closer and closer to the end as I do this. Alright, so we have a lot of extra paracord, which was kind of like to be expected. So you're just gonna kind of like fold it like this. Take scissors, take whatever you have. I usually just use like wire cutters, even though you really shouldn't. Clip it. Toss out the excess. Melt the end. Like we did before, cool. Beautiful. And you have your cable sleeved. But now, there's a couple things you need to do before we install the other connector. So, the next thing we have to do is we're going to get the shrink tubing, or heat shrink, whatever you call it. And we want to find a size that's really close to the size of the paracord, but big enough where it will fit over it. So we're just gonna cut a small piece, you know, 1/2 inch. Doesn't need to be exact. We're gonna sort of like wiggle our heat shrink over the paracord. And we're gonna slide it all the way to the end. Okay? And when you get close to the connector, you want about half of the heat shrink over the paracord and half over your, sorry, I'm not even showing you. Half over your paracord and half over the wire itself. And then I'd say leave, you know, maybe about 1 inch of exposed wire. And then I would normally use a heat gun, but I didn't really want to bring it up here and create all that noise for the stream. So you can do it with a lighter as well. And you're just gonna, you know, secure it on there. And it'll be pretty tight, and it won't slide around too much like it would if you didn't have any on there, so. Now's where you want to make sure that your paracord is the correct length. And right now, we're still a little long, so I'm going to shrink it up a little more even. Okay. And we're gonna melt it once again. Now we're gonna take this heat shrink off of the other end. That was just on there for, you know, sliding the sleeving over it. And we can put our heat shrink away. And we're gonna get our helping hand out. Squeeze that, leave our cables exposed a bit. Okay. So now is where we are gonna get our angled connector, right? So this is the part that's actually going to plug your mouse into your desk and allow you to actually use your mouse. So the way that I like to do these pins is I like to follow the pattern that would normally be on the USB cable, right? So the way that it works is your USB connector on your Model O or whatever mouse you're using will have a certain array of pins on it, right? And now you can find all this information online, but for the Model O, the order is black, green, white, red, okay? We are gonna follow this exact same pattern on the these connectors, right? So it looks completely different, but there are little numbers that are very hard for you to see. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. So in slot 1, we would put the first color black. In slot 2, we'd put the second color green. So on and so forth. And that is how the pinout is going to work. Now you can do this a multitude of ways, but this will be the easiest for you to remember later on. So now, like I said, here's where the soldering iron is going to come into play. I'm also going to use flux. I absolutely hate this stuff, but it is the best thing in the world when it comes to soldering because it just makes your life easier. I'm going to tin it a little bit. The solder flows up, so you want to tin at the bottom of the wire. So we're just gonna chop, I'm gonna chop like 2 pieces on there and put them on there because I might want to add 2 pieces. So we'll just slide them over. Oh, and I need to do another thing too, so it's good that I stopped. Okay, so we also need to slide this connector over before going any further. So the easiest way to do that is you push it in, and with these right angles, it's really hard, so you gotta reach in, sort of pull it through. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. Just gonna get a bit more flux on here. And this should be no problem at all. Are we in focus? Yeah. I might even get this camera a little closer. Perfect. Okay, so the first one's in. Now we gotta do the second one. So it's black, green, white, red. So now that we have all of these pins in and connected in the proper order, black, green, white, red, we can actually test the connector. So that's exactly what we're gonna do before we, you know, go any further. So these connectors basically, like, they just fit in and then like twist. Then you can like screw them in. But we're not even gonna do that yet because we just want to test it. So we can plug this end into the mouse, and I'm just plugging it like straight into the open mouse like so. And we'll know if it's working if the scroll wheel light turns on and I don't get any error messages. So let's zoom out and I can show you that. Look at that. You have motion of the mouse. The LED is working. We're in. We're good. Alright, so now, before we get too excited, we need to actually go in and finish this cable. I suppose. Yeah, this is gonna be tough. I've definitely had to do this in the past where I like sort of pull this and like slide it up. Okay. So we're just gonna apply the first heat shrink and we're gonna apply 2 of them. One right on top of the other. The reason I like using a heat gun better is because you don't like char your cable or anything. Like I ultimately just did. So once you have all that arranged, you can put your little end cap on. Just uses 2 screws. Okay, so, don't know why I did that. All this stuff out of the way. Okay, now we are going to install this on the mouse. So the way you do this, just plug in this first connector, you're gonna route the cable through the original, you know, little routing grooves. So should just fit right in. Adding paracord but reducing like the size of the cable by removing shielding really won't change the thickness very much, so you can do this pretty easily. And yeah, there you have it. So it fits right in. What I like to do, some people have like little end caps that they actually use for right here. I don't like those. I usually put like a little dot of hot glue in under the cable, and I just press down on it. That way you don't interfere with the mouse wheel at all, but we're not going to do that right now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the top shell. Got our 2 screws. And to do this, all we need to do is install the ribbon cables, clamp it together, and put those screws back in, and we're pretty much good to go. Alright, those look good. So you're going to slide the mouse on like so. You put the front on first, push it back, and the back should clamp. You should see no space in the back or on any of the sides or anything. All the buttons should, you know, click. Then you can take your 2 screws, clamp your mouse back together. And there you have it. Our mouse is back together. We'll make sure everything is working. There you go. Works perfect. No problem. Cable's a bit long, but that's exactly how I wanted it. Everything works great. So there you have it. That's the first step to doing this. Now, obviously, if you did not have the desk ports, you wouldn't be able to do this first. You'd probably want to do the reverse. But if you did do this first, it's not a big deal. Once you finish the next step, you'll be able to check everything, and you can always go back and change it. Just make sure you don't put the feet back on, because they only have so many uses, as I'll call them, before you no longer can reapply them. So, alright, so yeah, our mouse is done. I'm going to put this off to the side. I'm going to use my other mouse. I don't want to make this one dirty. My other mouse is kind of turned into the beater, I'll call it. Alright, so, yeah, we're good. Okay, so, now we have to do the final step. Okay. Now this is kind of where you can take your own approach to what I tell you. As there's a few ways to do it, right? But I'm gonna show you what I find to be the easiest. Whether you like to do it this way or not is up to you. Just keep in mind, when you do this, you should probably write down the pins that connect to each terminal. That way, when you go in and build mice, you can diagram it out. It'll make your life a lot easier. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some, this is basically just shielded cable. It's got like four wires inside. It's 4-core shielded wire. Shielded doesn't matter all that much. The important thing is that you have 4 cores. You could even do this with 4 bare wires, but to reduce the amount of impedance and all that good stuff, I would recommend using shielded wire. I would recommend doing this, or using something like this. It'll probably be a lot better. And you're also probably going to have a cable way longer than this. Since I've already done my desk connectors and I don't need any more, I'm really just doing this for demonstrative purposes, so I will be using a short cable. It's the only reason. For you, you're going to want to measure the distance from the connector on your desk to the port on your computer, factor in, any angles you need to make to manage your cables, all that fun stuff. And this one you don't have to sleeve. You don't really have to do anything fancy, you just want it to work, you want it to be durable, and that's about it, right? Because you're not going to see this. So, that being said, I have like about 1 foot of this cable, and I have the female side of the Aviator connector. I painted it, made it look fancy, even though I'm not even going to be using it. So yeah, let's go for it. Our Aviator connector is good, and now is where you're going to make a decision. I am going to take a look at these pins. You got, again, 1 through 5. They're labeled. There's little tiny numbers on there. I'm going to zoom in, or I'm sorry, right there. Look at that. Got all the numbers listed out for your own convenience. Okay? So that is how you're gonna do this, right? So what I recommend you do is you use the exact same arrangement on here as you do on the USB terminal. And the most common arrangement is white, green, black, red. So, 1 is on this side, etc., etc., etc. Now what we need to do is we're gonna remove the sleeving from here. Just make sure you remove enough. It's probably like the #1 thing I forget to do. And if you really want, you can even use the 5th pin as a ground for your shield. As you can see, you have to kind of pull back all this wire and this aluminum foil or whatever it is. I'm gonna zoom this in. I don't know why this is so far out for this. Okay. And we're gonna remove this foil. Keep in mind as well, when I do ultimately upload this to YouTube, I probably will have parts fast forwarded, as well as cutting certain things out, just to make it shorter and like easier for people to follow. I'm actually really surprised this is going quicker than I expected. It might sound crazy, but I'm telling you. Okay. We're gonna do that. gotta make sure that this shielding is not going to affect the rest of your cable. Or I'm sorry, the rest of these wires in here. So I just kind of like fold it over like that, and then what I do is I take some heat shrink, not the right size, slightly bigger size. No. Nope. Shooting star, got more than a couple of people going mad. I swear they're rooting hard. So we'll just loop it over the other end, route it over. And use the old lighter trick again. Okay. So that'll just keep that that shielding sort of like locked in there, out of your way. That way when you're soldering these and, you know, when it's actually connected to your desk, you don't have anything like too exposed. You wouldn't want that. So you could also go the extra mile here and actually put heat shrink on each of these individual wires to cover these terminals. I'm not going to do that. It's a little unnecessary, but if you're super anal about like exposed wires or any of that stuff, go for it. No harm, no foul. We're just stripping each of these. And like I said, I'm going to follow that white, green, black, red format for both this and for the USB connector, which means terminal 1 will be white. We're going to start with the white. We're going to go to the green. And I'm just kind of like laying the pins out so that I know exactly where they need to fall. Red, green, black, red, just like that. So, believe it or not, I actually like to start with the middle terminal first, or the third one, which in this case would be black, because it'll just make it easier to access the other ones. This is kind of like a, I don't want to say it's a difficult connector to solder, but it's kind of like an awkward one. Let me see. Gonna grab that flux again. Cool. Let me just go through and tin each of these. Green could use a little more. I also would normally wear safety glasses because my eyes like get a little burny. But with the headphones, it's just super uncomfortable. Black is the bottom center terminal, terminal 3. So we're just gonna get in there. Oh god. Wow. Need to extend the length of this. Alright. Just place it in there. Bang. Black is on. Actually, pretty good. Black there. And then we can do red, which is actually on the wrong side right now. Red is number 4. So that is how you set up this connector. Now, the only other thing that you want to make sure of is that your nut here fits over whatever connector is on this side. Obviously, it's going to be USB, but just make sure that it fits. If you have a USB connector that's too wide, it won't fit over. And when you go to actually mount this on the desk, you're going to have some problems. So just make sure that that works. That's really the only thing that I will recommend. I get all my USB connectors from zapcables.com. It works out really well. So, okay. So this side is complete. This is the side that would mount into your desk. This is the side that you see on my desk in a lot of my photos and, you know, like I was showing you before. So this is that female side that actually, you know, you plug into, so pretty much. Okay. Now, we are going to do the other side, which is the USB side. This connector's a little easier to work with, so. Again, we're gonna strip the wire, and we're gonna do the same thing with our heat shrink. So let me get some of that on there now to make it easier. So we can just stick that on there, strip this off. And again, your cable will likely be longer than this, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to sleeve it. You don't have to do any of that. Process will be completely identical. Your cable will just look longer and will likely be much more functional than mine is. Again, just pushing down on that shielding so that I can put the heat shrink over it. Kind of getting stuck. I want to make sure it's wrapped well. There you go. So. Take our lighter. Melt it on there. Again, I would definitely use a heat gun if I were you, or a hair dryer to do that, because it'll just make your life a lot easier. And it'll just make things look a lot prettier. But you know, a lighter works. You know, it's just not the best. So. We're gonna follow that same pattern I said multiple times before. White, green, black, red. So we got the white one stripped. Oof. May have stripped a little too much off the red, but that's okay. I'll make it work. So, what we're gonna do, we're gonna tin the soldering iron, put a little flux on each of the wire ends, pre-tin them. with said solder. Okay. I gotta switch the middle two, they keep coming out of place. Okay. And we're gonna do the order white, green, black, red. So we start with the white on the left, work our way across. And I like to just apply a little bit of solder, not solder, flux to each of these. Normally you would also want to pre-tin those, but mine are already tinned because I'm reusing this cable, or this plug. So white here. And we have green next. So, all of those are now soldered. White, green, black, red. We're good. You can add the, well, now you would want to go in and test. I probably wouldn't even put this piece on until you test. So test it, plug it into your computer, plug your mouse in, make sure everything's working. If one isn't, try to figure out which one it is. Or actually, I'm sorry. Take a look at your wire. This one, make sure both are in the white, green, black, red configuration. If both are, then just focus on your mouse and make sure that your terminal's inside the mouse. You know, like none of the pins are loose or anything like that. Make sure that the order is correct. If you didn't touch that connector, then it's probably not the internal connector and it's probably the external one. And just look up the pinout sheets for the mouse you have if you don't remember what it was. That's the easiest way to do it. You know, so. But once you have figured out that everything's working, you can close everything up. And the final step would be actually mounting this piece to your desk, right? I'm not going to drill any holes tonight, but I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do. Okay, so basically, we're going to zoom out here, and I'm going to kind of explain what I did. So this part is easy to mess up, but extremely important. Okay, so I'm gonna use my camera arm to its advantage right now. We're gonna get an interesting angle of my setup here. So this cable right here, okay? This is what we're ultimately doing on this stream. So when you unplug this, you can see we have this terminal here. These guys are the same thing, right? The only difference is you obviously can't see any of this above, you know, or on top of my desk because it goes through my desk. So the whole point is basically to eliminate the need for cables to droop over the back of your desk like that, and actually like allow for you to just quickly hot swap whatever it is you're using. Keyboards, mice, you could do this with, you know, really anything. As long as you understand those pinouts that I kind of explained before. So, what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of walk you through the way you do this. So once you kind of decided where that location was on your desk that you wanted to put it, you know, I had two They're kind of like centrally located. I found the exact spot I wanted. I marked it with a little, just like with a pencil, I just marked the center point. Then I went in, and these inner rings are 10/16 of an inch. So you're gonna go in with a 10/16 of an inch drill bit, drill a hole in the top of your desk. You don't wanna go all the way through. So if you have a solid desk, like try to go halfway, right? If you have a desk like me, like an IKEA desk, where it's like kind of two pieces of like wood, we'll call them, and then there's like cardboard in between, so you really only need to drill through that top layer, and then after you drill through the top layer, you can just remove the drill bit and kind of scrape out the inside where all the cardboard is. Then you're going to go in from under the desk, and the way that you typically mark that is you would take a smaller drill bit, like mark like a little pinhole through all the way through the desk, and then that's where you'd start with a larger diameter drill bit on the bottom, probably close to like 1.5 or 2 inches. You're gonna drill up to the halfway point where the other piece was, or in my case, you're just gonna drill through that bottom layer. And once you're through the bottom layer, then you can install this. So you're just gonna slide this in through the top, and this piece is going to be fixed into your desk like that, right? So obviously all this is gonna be covered, but it's gonna be resting on the top of your desk. Now, if you had a hardwood desk, now you can literally just throw on this ring, throw on the lock nut, you just, you know, put them over your USB cable after it's like looped through your desk. Yeah, okay. So yeah, you'd put on the washer first and then the lock nut, and then you would just clamp it down. That simple. Tighten it up, and it'll be locked down on top of your desk. You can orient it however you want. Just make sure that notch, or keep in mind that notch is going to be the direction that the, you know, Aviator connector points. So if you wanted the Aviator connector to go in like so, right, like come out at you, you'd want the notch facing you. Now, if you have an IKEA desk, this is where it's like a little different, but it's not that bad. Again, you're going to want to scrape out that cardboard on the inside, right? So you're going to have a big hole in the bottom, smaller hole in the top. You're going to slide this through, scrape out all the cardboard on the inside, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take a big washer. You want the inside of the washer ring to be 10/16 of an inch, and you want the outside of the washer to be smaller than the hole you drilled under your desk. I believe the washers I used are about 1.5 inches, and the hole I drilled is 2 inches. So you slid this through, you've got a big hole, you slide the washer on, and you're gonna press the washer up against the top layer of your desk, put this lock ring on, and tighten it down. And what that's gonna do is basically, since IKEA desks aren't the strongest, that's gonna make it so that the surface, like, force when you're pulling on it is going to be distributed over a larger area. So it'll be less likely for you to actually like rip the connector out of your desk or something crazy, right? If you just put this lock nut on, all of the force is going to be on a very small area, and there's a good chance you're going to rip this straight through the desk, and you don't want that. So yeah, pretty much. And that's about it. You know, then you can literally just plug this thing into your computer, plug your mouse into it, plug your keyboard into it, and you are good to go. It's that simple. I explained it and did it in 2 hours, so believe in yourself if this is something you're interested in, and you know, it's gonna make your desk super clean. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on this. I've gotten, you know, plenty of questions about how to do it, about, you know, different things like that. A few frequently asked questions I have gotten would include things like, does this add latency? I don't know, right? I don't have any sort of device that can test latency beforehand or after the fact. You need some pretty beefy stuff to do that. And I don't own any of that stuff. Does it add more resistance? Probably. I mean, adding any sort of connector is going to add a level of resistance. Are you going to notice it? Probably not. I definitely don't. I've been using it now for 6 months. Haven't had any... it hasn't been 6 months. It's been like 4 months. I haven't noticed anything. I haven't had any problems with it. It's been pretty seamless from the first day I did it to now. The only thing I will say is that something I would recommend, put a little Loctite on this, or even glue it once you have it tightened down. Over time, it will just loosen up and you'll get like connectors that, you know, do this and whatever. You don't want that. I haven't really done it because I'm gonna get a new desk soon and I'm gonna need to redo all this anyway. But for the time being, yeah, it would be nice if I threw some Loctite on it because they do come loose all the time. So, pretty straightforward. Takes a little bit of time, but if it's something that you want to do, go for it, you know. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great night, and I'll catch you on the next stream.